Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to a new episode of The Mini Mirror Show. This is a podcast where you'll get short episodes about emotional wellness, spirituality, life philosophy, and so much more. I'm your host, Amira Sookram, and I'm the author of the Guilt-Free Goals book, and I'm currently writing my second book on emotional literacy and emotional responsibility. So you might have noticed that this video looks a little different than my last podcasts, and I'd like to call this an experimental episode. First, I want to start by talking about my feelings right now and how I'm processing them. And then I'm going to talk about something that came up in a TikTok live that I think is really important for us all to hear. So first things first, I feel busy. And because I feel busy and have less time to myself, I feel tired and a little drained as well. I went on a trip, and you might have seen that I got to see the Northern Lights, which was very awesome. And basically, I got back from that trip and was like, okay, I have to jump right back into work. I literally thought I would record this podcast episode hours ago and yesterday, and it didn't happen. And so now it is 6 p.m. on a Friday, and I'm recording this for you. So this was a little bit of mismanagement on my time, but also when we get back from trips and we go from that life of being away to back at home, it's really hard to readjust to our schedules again. And I always think that I'm going to be able to do it this time, and I am literally always humbled. Like being in a plane with all those people and all that energy, and then doing the commute home is just always draining. So I'm feeling the feelings. Part of me feeling busy means that I know that I need like a day or two to myself to just rejuvenate. So I identified my feeling, I identified my need, and I know that I want to give myself 2 days to myself. So hopefully my Sunday and Monday this week will be without work. And that meant doing a lot of work right after a trip so that I could have this time to myself. Which is why I'm here recording this podcast for you under not perfect circumstances, because it's better for me. And even though I want to show up to this podcast with much higher quality than I have in the past, it would be going against my values to diminish my feelings in order to do so. So you're getting a really raw episode today. If you like it, please leave a comment because I'll do more episodes like this in between the others, just so you get more of me. All right, so on today's podcast episode, I want to talk about asking questions. To preface this, I'm going to tell you a story. So I went on a date with somebody, and basically, like, they were looking at me like they wanted to kiss me. And I said, "Hey, do you want to kiss me?" And they said, "Yeah." And then we kissed. Right after that kiss, I was like, "You could have just asked me." And so a lot of people will say, like, "Oh, this ruins the moment. Like, I don't want to ask. I don't want to do that." Just ask. This is so applicable to other things in life. What we think up here is not necessarily what is going on around us. It is our perception of the world. So we have to take moments to check in with people around us and to ask questions and ask quality questions. If you are really wondering why that person is doing what they're doing, find a way to get into their brains, to pick their brains and ask them a question. If you're like, oh, I really admire this person, ask them about how they got to where they are today. Maybe it's a question like, hey, I really admire your intellect. What do you think got you to where you are today? Or maybe it's simply, hey, I really want to kiss you. Can I kiss you? Always ask questions and ask for consent. Like if you want to ask somebody something and maybe they're not in a position to really just give feedback randomly, obviously if you're in like a Q&A, that might be different, but literally just ask them, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" And then ask them your question. I did this when I met Danielle Laporte. When I met her, I was like, "Can I ask you a question?" Because this was outside of her like panel talk. She was like, "Yeah, of course." I was like, "What do you recommend for somebody who's afraid of intimacy and vulnerability?" And I'll never forget what she said. Because talking to somebody who's my favorite author, who that's not the only favorite author I met, and I'll never forget what Cassandra Clare said to me either. But talking to somebody who is just like somebody you admire, and having them give you advice like for you in that moment, it is serendipitous. It is such a beautiful moment and it is divine timing to get exactly what they have to tell you. And yes, you might feel embarrassed to do this, but I want to remind everyone listening to this that no one knows what you're thinking and you don't know what anyone else is thinking. As much as you want to believe that about somebody, anyone can hide anything from you. Your thoughts are your innermost world. No one has to be in it, and no one is. Even if you think you know how somebody is thinking and what they feel, always ask. Confirm it. People will feel so much more cared for and loved if you show an interest into what is going on in their inner world. So always ask questions. Ask people how they're feeling. Ask them if you can do something that you want to do to them. And ask them questions that give you answers that you really need in your life. So for Danielle Laporte, I asked her, you know, what do you do if you're afraid of intimacy and vulnerability? And she said to me, do it. Everything is on the other side of that. And that was exactly what I needed to hear. And ever since then, I've been practicing building my comfort with intimacy. And even when I'm in moments with somebody where I have to like be really close to them and they're staring at me in the eyes, I'm feeling uncomfortable, but I'm sitting with it because I know that's my fear of intimacy. It's my fear of being abandoned by somebody I'm being intimate with. And then with Cassandra Clare, I actually didn't ask a question. I told her, "Thank you for writing books that make people feel things." And she said to me, "Of course. What other kinds of books are there? Like, what else is there if you're not writing books that make people feel things?" She said this to me before I started writing my book, and it's all about feelings, so this was just perfect for me. The insightful question I'd love to leave you with today: what is a burning question you have inside of you for somebody in your life? All right, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for being here. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and do anything that you feel is within your capacity to support me and this podcast. Sending so much love. Bye.